Hello, my name is Christy and I am a community chef with the United Way of New York City. And today I'm going to make a recipe called Glazed Beets and Greens that we will also be making sure you get the recipe at home so you could try it. And I think you'll enjoy it. It's a really lovely, simple ingredients and simple steps to get quite an amazing amount of flavor. I started out really today with putting my long hair back, washing my hands very thoroughly, and washing all the produce that we're going to be using today, even the things that we will peel to make sure no dirt gets into anything else that I'm preparing. So I'm using today a Vidalia onion, which is a nice sweet onion, and it's a big one, so I'm only actually using half of it. And then the star of our show today is our beets. And you can see here with the lovely greens on them, and I used two very big beets. I have a smaller family, so I'm using a little bit less than the recipe calls for. And then we're going to use some olive oil, but any oil will work. And we're going to use balsamic vinegar, which I don't know if anybody's used that, but it's a wonderful sweet vinegar made out of grapes. And it's just got a lot of really lovely flavor to it. And I think you will enjoy it. And it works very well with the beets and the onions. So I'm heating the olive oil up in my pan. The recipe calls for 3 tablespoons of oil. So this is a tablespoon from a measuring set, but that's really just one of your big spoons or the round soup spoons they're often known as. That's a tablespoon too. So that'll work perfectly. And then it's the same amount of the balsamic vinegar as well. Let me show you how I cut the beets. And I cut them into dices today because I find them to be a little bit easier to eat, and also they cook a little bit faster, but you certainly can slice them, and I will show you that. So I took my whole beet and I cut off both ends and then cut the round beet in half so I could lay it flat on my board and not have any problem with it rolling away from me. So I find that to be the safest way to cut anything, is to make sure it's super stable on your cutting board. And then I cut it into slices, and always holding my fingers in the bear claw. Okay, so then I'm gonna slice it across where I've laid it flat. And then I'm gonna take those slices and stack them up. And here's my peel. I just used a vegetable peeler. So I got, just a very small amount of the peel off rather than trying to do it with a knife, although you could, but it's much harder not to waste more of it, right? And then I'm gonna lay these down, and I'm gonna just start cutting them into spears like this. And then I can just turn them around and then cut whatever size dice I like. But you could also, for this recipe, just leave them sliced and just take these bigger slices and just cut them in half. And that's a nice way to do them too, or any way you want. You can julienne them, which is the real thin strips, anything that you find works for you. But I feel like for this demonstration, it's really a great way to do it is to dice it. Okay, and then I want to show you how I did the greens. So first of all, to wash the greens, I'm going to take a big bowl of water. You could use a clean sink. And I'm going to take the leaves and just give them a nice little dunk back and forth, agitate them to get any dirt off, which will drop to the bottom. And you may have to change the water if for any reason the greens are sandy or dirty, which they could be, right? And then to get started, I'm going to cut off the stems just to make it a little bit easier for me to manage. So this is what I have here, is just the leaves. And then I'm just going to cut the stems up very small so that, again, they will cook quickly when I am preparing the dish in the end, right? Okay, so then I just put them all together. I put the point of my knife on the board, and I just come back and forth slicing it, and I get these nice little pieces. And of course, you could cut all of these things any way you choose, right? I'm just doing it one way, and that's not the only way. So with the leaves, what I do is I take them and just, after they've been washed, and then I just roll them up like a burrito or a piece of sushi, if anybody's ever made that. Just like that, nice and tight. And then again, I put my knife on the board and just rock it back and forth, slicing through the greens and getting a nice ribbon. And if I want to, I can come back and slice them the other way to make them not so long, so they're a little bit easier to handle. And I find that a really great way to cut any type of green. And you see it's pretty fast. And we're gonna put these in at the end. So we're gonna start out right now with getting all of our ingredients in the pan. We're gonna put in the sliced onions that I sliced very thin. And again, I took that onion, I cut it in half, and then I cut it again in quarters. And then I lay the flattest side on the board, and then I could just get a nice thin slice of the onion that you see here. All right, so now we're gonna add that. Oop, we're getting a little sizzle. Pan's hot, which is good. So you can see I've got all the onions in there in the 3 tablespoons of olive oil. Well, actually, I used a little bit less because I'm using a little bit less beets. But if you make the whole recipe, you're going to use 3 tablespoons. And then I'm also going to add, just breaking some of these up a little bit, I am also going to then add all the other ingredients. So that's why I said the steps in this are so simple, right? I'm going to add the beets. And I'm going to add the balsamic vinegar, which again, I used the same amount of tablespoons of vinegar to oil. And I'm going to use 1 cup of water. We're gonna bring it to a boil like we have here. Okay, we can see all the bubbles in it and hear it. And now we're gonna reduce the heat to low. And that's gonna do what's called caramelize it. It's going to bring the sugars out, natural sugars, and that's going to help it get our nice glaze and thicken up the sauce a little bit and give it a lovely flavor. All right, so we're gonna put the lid on. Whoops, a few stray beets right here. Get those back in. And then in the last 5 minutes, we're going to add the beet greens that I showed you earlier, and then we will let those cook for about 5 minutes and the recipe should be ready. All right, see you back here in 10 minutes. All right, so we are back. Magically, my table's cleaned up. That might not happen for you at home. Sorry about that. Anyway, so let's see how we're doing. I can smell the wonderful earthiness of the beets and the sweetness of the balsamic. Beets, by the way, often get paired with fruit, even in hot dishes, with oranges often, or an orange juice glaze. And also when you do it raw, because beets can be eaten raw, and they're often then used with apples or pears or something like that, which is really nice. All right, so here's all of our greens, our nice ribbons. And we're just gonna mix those in and give it another few minutes. And I don't know if you can tell, I'll show you, but we've lost a lot of the sauce. It's just, it's not as thin now as it was with the water, which also helped to kind of boil and steam our beets, right? It's looking really pretty with all the greens mixed in. I love it. And the greens, by the way, can be eaten raw as well. They're really good added into a salad, just as one of the other greens that you might mix with lettuces. Really tasty. And when you're storing them, you're going to want to separate the stems from the root, and you're going to leave about 1 inch. So that would be, about this much. And then the greens, you're going to wrap in some damp paper towel. And the roots you're just going to store in a plastic bag in your fridge, and you should get, a nice 2 weeks out of the beet roots, out of the beet itself, and the leaves, I would say probably up to 5 days if they're fresh when you buy them, if they're in good condition when you buy them. When you're purchasing them, you want to look for ones that are really nice and smooth and kind of a dark, deep red, although beets do come in different colors. They come in, there's like orange beets and these yellow ones, and there's ones that are actually striped, which are cool, the white and the beet color, that deep purple red kind of color. All right, I think this is really pretty much ready. Oh, it smells so good. And I'm gonna add a little bit of salt right now, Not much, probably about 1/8 of a teaspoon or 1/4 of a teaspoon. That's a real personal choice. And remember also in terms of how long you cook this. If you like the vegetables a little bit firmer, then you're going to cook it, a little bit less than somebody who might like it very well done, right? And the beauty of beets also is that they can be roasted or boiled or steamed or eaten raw, like I said earlier, which is really nice. It gives you a lot of variety with it. And of course, after you finish serving this, if you have any leftovers, which you probably won't, but if you do, then you're going to store those in the fridge. And you should get a nice, 4 adult-sized servings out of this. All right, here's the true test, the taste test. And I'm happy that I have a nice big pot of this now for my family today. All right, whoops. I'm excited. That is so good. Surprisingly so because of such a simple, or hopefully you find it simple preparation. One last thing, I don't know if I didn't really show you, but my hands were a little bit stained from what I had done out here without my gloves on. So I used salt, just regular salt in cold water and got my hands completely beet free again. It's also a great trick for onions and garlic if you want to get that smell off of your hands. All right, so this has been fun. I've enjoyed making glazed beets and greens with you, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye.